Hello and welcome to BCU Sport TV. We are bringing the Guinness Six Nations show, but you must be wondering where we are with this tropical outfit, and we are partnered with the Coconut Tree here in Birmingham, and they have 9 stores. Before we talk about the Six Nations, let me welcome all our viewers and let me welcome Tom and Mark with the Sri Lankan greetings. Aiboan.
Aiboan.
Like in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, some of the smells of these food is amazing, and it's nice about the studio. And yeah, can't wait to get stuck into this.
Oh.
Yeah, I've never been to Sri Lanka, but I really feel like going after seeing this. It looks amazing.
There you go, thank you very much, and we'll have a look at the 3 games. There was so much critics in social media, 2 fascinating games and 1 so boring game. We'll talk all about that, but first let's enjoy our starters with Kottu and Hoppers in a Sri Lankan way, who are our partners as official restaurant, the Coconut Tree. Some wonderful starters here at the Coconut Tree. Let's move on to the first game that we are going to discuss. France versus Scotland. You predicted that Scotland might pull out this game in our week 2 show, Tom, but it was not a bad game, but 2 red cards in the first 11 minutes of the game.
Yeah, 2 red cards, obviously that does change things a lot. But look, I think Scotland were competitive, and I think they've been very, very good in the Six Nations so far. France are, classed as, I think the 3rd team in World Rugby at the moment in terms of rankings, and they played like it. They were good. They had a good side performance and played very well.
Yeah, Scotland to be within 4 points within sort of 4 or 5 minutes from the end. They must have been really pleased with that. You always felt that France were going to keep winning all the way through. However, it was a really positive performance from Scotland, and it's better this year that we've seen them win the first game, win the second game, and be really competitive against one of the 2 biggest teams. So they would be really pleased with their overall performance, and probably a little bit disappointed that they didn't steal it.
I mean, the improvement Scotland have made this season has been
massive,
fantastic. And they have been steadily building over the last 2 years, and this year they really have. I think they've got a great combination going to that World Cup. Having players who've got the experience, but youngsters coming through as well, really hitting form, and they could be a very good side.
They'll be looking forward to the World Cup. They really will be. However, they've got a really difficult pool, haven't they? Because they're with Australia and Ireland. So yeah, that's a tough pool.
That's pretty much in terms of going a bit more into the game, those 2 red cards, Gilchrist from Scotland going again head contact in the 7th minute, and then Mohamed Hawass in the 11th minute. Hawass, of course, didn't have a good, decent history in terms of conceding those yellow cards and few other incidents, but what sort of mental attitude will create to his mind straight away? You got the opportunity from another. Antoine is not he was missing for the next few games, so this is the opportunity you should be used.
Yeah, I think the players have just got to be, more streetwise in terms of their body position going into these tackles. And with Gilchrist, he was fully upright. Havertz, that was a really clear head-on-head collision, and they've just got to be a little bit more aware and a little bit sort of more streetwise in terms of their overall body position, because it's going to become more and more important. Everything in the press about the tackle height being lowered, etc. And for the long-term welfare of the players, it's got to be something that is being sort of really looked after.
Even talking to referees, obviously when I'm coaching at the university level, but they are on it. They're on it every single game. They're watching, and any kind of contact above the shoulder area, it's a straight card. Like that, you're off, and at an international level, it can make such a difference to the game.
Oh,
Like, you lose a player, you pretty much lost the game because there is such fine margins now. And it's only going to get worse, especially with the spotlight on rugby now. World Cup's coming. They want to increase the uptake in rugby from young kids. They have to manage the tackle height, and obviously mentioned already, like they're dropping it again. They're below the waist at grassroots level.
Yeah.
It's going to make it very, very tough. But effectively, anything from here to here, it's going to be a guard. So and it's about getting kids to understand the tackle technique, but they're watching these superheroes on TV. They've got to see them doing it as well. So I understand why they are being so strict on it. But God, it has a massive effect on the game.
Yeah, and if it hadn't been for the French red card, Scotland would have been out of the water, and we've got to be careful that international games are also competitive. Tommy Bowe did a really interesting piece in one of the papers last week where he's suggesting that if there is a red card, that particular player is off for the game, but after 10 minutes they potentially bring somebody else on, so that the game is still competitive. And World Rugby really need to look at exactly what happens, because with the importance of the tackle height, if you do get loads of red cards, it can potentially really change the game.
Oh yeah, and international rugby is so fast paced. The difference between a person dropping their height and obviously someone running them at full height, it is so difficult to make that adjustment at that speed. So there is going to be cards. We understand why there is cards, but I like the idea of 10 minutes off the pitch and then maybe replacing that player, or 15 minutes. But you losing a player in the 11th minute of a game at international level, you can pretty much kiss the game goodbye.
But
You ain't gonna win that one.
And Hamish Watson from Scotland perspective and Gregory Allred from French perspective, they would have never thought that they are going to start for only 10 minutes. And we can see the replacement in terms of replacement. We are talking about Gregory Allred performance. He's been not into that standard as yet. Even the French coaching staff didn't realize that he's the only option to take him out.
Yeah, and it's so difficult, isn't it, when they have to replace somebody like that. He's a world-class player when he's on form. But he probably hasn't hit the form that he was playing at last year internationally. But that'll come back, and it's difficult when they've got to make these decisions really.
Yeah, and to be fair, when you're on the bench, and I've been there myself, and I know there's no excuse, but you almost set into a game, right, I've got probably about 30, 40, maybe 60 minutes to just sit down on the bench and enjoy the game a little bit. But your mind's got to be in it, but to then switch on suddenly and be like, right, I'm going to be playing now, so quickly into it. It is a bit of a mind switch, isn't it? And
Definitely.
Probably wasn't ready for that.
Hu Jones scoring 2 tries, and he's showing that he feels like into the fine form, and comparing to in the UK, Ringrose perhaps the number 1 centre, number 113 in form, and then Hu Jones certainly showing into that. And also they have the depth, Chris Harris, who played for Lions in the 13 shirt. Probably he's considered as the best defensive 13 in the UK. So his performance.
Yeah, no, I thought what was really good was he picked some fantastic lines, in fairness to him, and you can see the influence that Finn Russell's having there, because he's drawing the defenders in, and then it's allowing that little bit of space outside him. And Chris Harris, Hu Jones just picked a couple of really nice lines off him, and against a really strong French defence as well. So he did really well.
The Scottish backline is really starting to connect well now.
It is.
When you've got a 10 like that who can be the defender, hold it. He looks like he's got so much time on the ball, and he just creates so much space on the outside. It's giving your outside backs, your centres, just time on the ball, just to enjoy their rugby, and I think they're only going to get better.
Yeah.
I think they're at the start of their journey. They've obviously the first 2 weeks of the Six Nations, they got some great wins, and that's only going to keep adding to their confidence and building as the competition goes on, and obviously into the World Cup.
Absolutely, because Finn Russell's own try showed that he's dangerous himself from that sort of position. So he does just draw defenders in, and the flat ball for Jones' first try was fantastic.
You mentioned about Finn Russell's and Hu Jones partnership. It really proved fruitful, and even before the Six Nations, they wanted to see Marcus Smith and Harlequin centre Marcus Smith and
Oh,
how come I can forget this name? He's not even in the radar.
I can't remember. I can't remember the centre's name.
No.
What's the centre that?
I like this. It can be a real good blooper. Oh, I'm so sorry. Height is 13. Joe Marchant. Come on, Joe Marchant.
Joe Marchant.
Oh, so sorry. Yeah, we were talking a lot about Joe Marchant and Smith's combination. That's going to be the England setup. We'll talk about that England great game. But going into the last few minutes, France versus Scotland, the score was like 32-21. Before 32-21, it was 27-21. France had a penalty in the Scotland 22, and points difference is just 4 or 5. If Scotland scored a converted try, Scotland win. But they were so much confident to keep the position, not going for 3 points, but to go into the corner and keep the position inside the red zone.
Yeah, I think it was a really interesting decision, but it proved to be the right one, didn't it? And I think it was 4 points they were ahead, so a penalty would have put them 7 points, so it could potentially been a draw, and obviously Scotland would have been kicking off so deep into the French 22. So I think they chose the right decision, and they knew that they were on top at that time, I think, and they had the dominance. So it was probably not that difficult a decision to make, knowing how to just play the clock down, and then when Figo scored the try as well, that was that was the end of the game.
Absolutely, that try signifies him as the man of the match performance. Certainly, he was the man of the match on that day. But overall, France performance going into the week after.
Yeah, that's going to be a really interesting game, isn't it? And I think for France, that apart from the Ireland game, which was always going to be the closest game, they're looking good. They're probably not hitting the heights that they hit last year, but they're still such a difficult team to beat.
Yeah, and they're missing a few boys as well.
Yeah,
A few players come back in. They're not the finished product yet. They've still got a long way to go. And like you said, they're a bit off where they were last year, but they're not that far off, and they are a team that's going to be one of the teams to watch in this World Cup. I don't see them losing another game in the Six Nations. So I don't see Ireland losing another game either.
No, exactly.
So they're playing some good rugby. They've got confidence. They've got boys to come back. They trust each other as well. The synergy between the players is really, really good. And I think they've built a really good squad, and I think they'll go into the World Cup at the end of the year, and they'll be one of the favourites, definitely.
Absolutely, indeed. So there we go, France winning 32 points to 21. That ends Scotland's Grand Slam hopes, and we'll go for a coconut tree break, and we'll be back with the next game. Welcome back once again to VCE Sport TV. We are talking the Guinness Six Nation Tour. Week 3 is over, and let's move on to the England versus Wales game at Principality Stadium. According to social media critics, like I mentioned, there's 2 fascinating games and 1 so boring games. Not me saying, but the England fans, of course. Your view on that game.
We were literally just talking about it in the break, and probably have to agree with the critics. It looked like 2 teams who didn't have much confidence. It just didn't really get going. The Wales-England game has always been a big one. It's always been one that's full of passion and a high skill level, and it just didn't really get going at all. And it was just like teams that lack confidence.
It was. I mean, in fairness to England, the 2 tries they scored, they took really well. The first one was really nicely created with that inside ball back in and then out wide. Wales didn't create anything throughout the game at all. There was an awful lot of kicking, especially from the base of the ruck. A lot of box kicking, and obviously Freddie Stewart was sort of really on form. He took everything, so Wales got really nothing out of that. So it was really disappointing from that perspective. But as Tom said, England also looked like they were lacking confidence, so there was no real spark to the game at all. And going into the World Cup, both teams need to find some confidence somewhere. Wales are now going to face a very difficult game against Italy, because Italy are going to be really up for this game, especially with it being in Rome. England, I've got France and Ireland left to play, so it's going to be really difficult for them. So it's going to be hard to see where they're going to gain this confidence before the World Cup.
And just going back to the game itself, it was just a battle of the skies, wasn't it?
It was.
And the poor old halfpenny got absolutely munched a few times. That's
Way
one.
from the start.
That's what England are very good at. They're very good at getting good kicks, very accurate, and their line speed and their kick chase is very, very good. And halfpenny was just literally lamb to the slaughter.
He was.
And then Freddie Stewart, he's fantastic in the air, and Wales should have realised that and just changed it up. And if they just started moving that ball around, we saw how England's defence in the first game got cut wide open.
And what was really disappointing from my perspective was that there was quick ball to be had, but unfortunately we were very slow at getting it out. For some reason, Thomas Williams seemed to, as soon as he got his hands on the ball, seemed to stop, look around. And with the English defence, they're always going to be good.
Yeah.
You've got to really be quick and get that ball away really quickly if you're going to create any space. But Wales were virtually always one player out, and lack creativity, which was really disappointing.
When you've got someone like Lewis Rees-Zammit on your wing, you've got to give him the ball. I mean, obviously he got one opportunity, interception. But he just didn't get any ball, did he? No ball in space at all. And Wales, I actually think, have got one of the best back lines in world rugby when they're on form.
Yeah.
But they're just not seeing the ball. They're just not getting that quick ball or playing it through their hands. And it's so frustrating to watch because they have got, on paper, probably more potential than England to do well in this World Cup and in the Six Nations.
Yeah. And that's why it's really, really frustrating. Obviously, everything that's going on off the field maybe isn't helping. Especially in that confidence building. However, we need to do something to be able to create a little bit of, confidence for the supporters as well. You heard more of Swing Low, Sweet Chariot in the
Principality Stadium, England fans completely.
You did from any other Welsh songs, which is not normal.
Is that the reason Wales team facing in the recent past, especially there was no training on Tuesday or Wednesday, there's so many issues going on with the players, and not only the players, even the Wales controlling body had some issues over the last 3-4 months.
We didn't even think the game was going to go ahead until the day before. Look, there's going to be 101 excuses why Wales rugby isn't performing right now. That is a big issue. They need to sort out the off-field stuff. Players need to have that security of contracts, and obviously they didn't get as much training time, but at the end of the day they're professional international rugby players. They didn't pick up the game last week, they've been doing it for a long time, they've been on the international stage, and you're playing England at the Principality. That should be enough to get up for the performance.
Yeah, absolutely. No more motivation is needed than that.
In your perspective, Wales players has the right to protest?
Yeah, I obviously, when things aren't going right for the vast majority of players, it's very important that the players at the top, stand up and be counted because they've got the loudest voice. But there was an awful lot of distraction last week, which wasn't field related, and that is never going to help. As Tom said, it shouldn't also hinder, but it's never going to help you prepare for what was for Wales a really big game. There's a lot for the WIU and Welsh rugby as a whole to get sorted.
I think for world rugby at the moment, I mean, we don't want to make this a debate about about rugby as well, but right now rugby, since COVID and everything like that, it has taken a hit.
Yeah.
There's been law changes in the game to make it safe to try and encourage youngsters to take up the sport. I think the whole of rugby itself needs to have a bit of an overhaul and look at itself. And I think the Welsh situation actually highlights the global problem right now. We've got a World Cup coming on, which is a big showpiece for the game. The Six Nations is obviously a great event for Northern Hemisphere rugby, but overall, the club game, we've watched Wasps fail, we've watched Worcester go down, there's talks of other clubs going, and I think in general, rugby needs to come together and actually sort the problems out, because it's not just Wales, there's other problems happening, and they need to restructure a lot of things.
No, I totally agree.
Let's talk about England performance. Overall win is a win, like we discussed, whether it's by a point, a win is a win, but In terms of England's game plan, so it is quite evident that they want to attack in the opposite 50, opposite half. So if that is the game plan, we mentioned that I'm reflecting to the England fan followers on social media. So we mentioned about Marcus Smith only coming off the bench for 7 minutes in the previous game, but this time around just 20 seconds. Can you justify that?
It's just ridiculous. I mean, an England cap is very special to a player. But England cap, which literally gives you 20 seconds, what is the point? Like, what is the? He literally came on. They did a token play, and I think the winger got taken straight to touch. And he was there like, awesome. Got my England cap. But it's just like one touch, one turnover, fantastic. It's just pointless, absolutely pointless. Bring them on with 20 minutes to go where they can actually affect the game. But 20 seconds, it's almost like, oh, do you know what? On you go, kid. Have a run.
England brought in Nick Evans, the attack coach from Harlequins, and as he came, papers suggested that they are going to get that Harlequins attacking flair, and they were talking about Marcus Smith and Marchant's combination is going to go well in terms of the attack. But having a coach like in that attacking mindset, where does this fit in terms of England's strategy?
I think Ollie Lawrence basically threw that game out of the window because he's come in, his defence has been phenomenal, his turnover, his work off the ball and his link play, he's taken the pressure off the 10 massively. So I think they might have gone with plan A, but obviously over the first 2 games it wasn't the greatest performances. Ollie's come in and he's been brilliant. I think he's been a standout player actually in the England team. Man the match in the previous game, and he wasn't far off this week either. So obviously, when you have a plan as a coach, if it's not working, you're going to have to find alternatives, and Ollie has been that alternative.
And I think Danny Kerr highlighted in commentary on Saturday the fact that the England move that led to the first try was a Harlequins move, which evidently Nick Evans must have brought in. But I agree with Tom in terms of. I think more than anything, what England have needed in the last couple of games is Farrell's leadership at 10. That has been probably more important than developing a different style. They've needed to win those 2 games, and Farrell has been the 10 who has been able to deliver that. It will be interesting now to see how they develop going into the Ireland-France game, because those are the more difficult games, and it'll be interesting to see what decisions Steve Borthwick makes in terms of looking at different combinations and at different times within the game. But bringing somebody on with 20 seconds to go, that's no good for them apart from potentially match fee, but it's no good for their development.
Yeah, and also the criticism has come in actually since that point. It's only been, oh God, like, please don't put me on in 20 seconds. I don't want to go on. Like it's just that it's not good. It's not good. And as a player, you want to play whatever level you want to get on. No one wants to be on the bench, and no one wants to come on for 20 seconds. Like give them a run.
Right,
Otherwise, what's the point of having a bench?
Well, there's not a scoreboard in terms of only 3 points to 8 in favour of England at the half-time, and come second half, early try to reach Zammit, and Wales were on the scoreboard for the first time, leading the scoreboard. In terms of Anthony Watson's try, good to see he got his opportunity and he's showing that he certainly deserves that white shirt. And also we were talking about Ellis Gange's performance, but Kyle Sinclair also played a massive part.
Oh yeah, the front row boys have been actually one of the strong aspects of the game.
Yeah,
Ellis and Carl Sinclair have been brilliant. I think the whole way through the Six Nations, their leadership, their set piece is brilliant. I actually saw Watson in Loughborough the week leading up to it. He was doing some speed training. And it was good to see him back fit and like hungry again and playing well, and obviously to get his opportunity at the weekend. It was good to see.
He looked really sharp, didn't he? In fairness to him.
Really, really good.
And also his body language is, you can see from his body language that he's there for the kill.
He's a finisher. When he gets an opportunity, he will take it. And he had a long injury layoff, obviously a couple of seasons ago. It's been a bit up and down. But he's back playing well, and he looks ready, to hold that England shirt for a while now.
He looked hungry. He wanted to have the ball in his hands on Saturday, and evidently confident with it as well. he obviously took his try well, but there was an occasion when Wales kicked the head, Rhys Emmett was right on him, and he used really good feet to get around him and put England back attacking. So I thought he looked really sharp.
There's a lot of talk about the Irish fullback Henson and also French fullback Ramos. We did mention about Freddie Stewart. He was so brilliant on the weekend, especially with his high ball and his timing every catch into perfection.
Yeah, in terms of that high ball, I mean, he got plenty of practice at it on the weekend as well, in fairness, because it was almost like a Thomas Williams and Freddie Stewart practice the high ball session, and he is, as was said on the weekend, he probably is one of the best in the world at that. What was disappointing probably for England is that they didn't create an awful lot from that, and I think that is probably the reason that Wales continued to do it, was that even though they were giving the ball to England, England didn't create that much from it. But, really, really good player, and what's he, 21, 22? Got a long career ahead of him.
It reminds me with the height at the start of Israel Folau, Wallaby player, just the start that he had with the high balls and making those yards and giving a try assist and scoring tries as well. So pretty much kind of similar attacking play.
Definitely. I mean, and for a fullback, you want someone who's going to be sound, solid in the air. His area skills are on point. His speed is good. He's got that height, as you mentioned. He's still so young. This is what's so good for England. They have got a group of boys who are very, very young, coming through, only just starting out on their international journey. But Freddie, he's been fantastic. I know he did a lot of work with Jordan Murphy when Jordan was head coach at the Tigers. Very quiet guy as well off the pitch. He's not an arrogant player. He's a not real likeable guy, but he works very, very hard. And he's definitely got that old school sort of Leicester mentality. Just works really hard and really focused on achieving what he wants to achieve in the game. So fair play to him. He's doing very well at the moment.
Wonderful. So in terms of Maro Itoje's performance, he was not among the lights in the first two games, but this game he really stood up. I think he made 14 tackles out of 15 tackles that he made. Itoje's
one of them guys, like, obviously he has those X-factor moments, like he does, he's brilliant, but he doesn't really ever have a bad game. He's just always there, he works hard, he's an absolute nuisance as well in the forward pack. You can see him. Remember when I was still playing, obviously Itoje was playing, he was so loud and chopsy all the time, just used to wind up the players, the opposition players, but he is like a robot. He's literally, I think he was made in a factory somewhere, and he's just unbelievable. Physically, he's an absolute specimen, but he's intelligent as well. He understands the game, he understands the nitty-gritty of it all, and he's just an absolute sod to play against.
He seems to really enjoy the winding up of other players, and he, as Tom said, he doesn't stop for the 80 minutes, and at times you really need to have that in your second row, somebody who will just give that 100% all the time. And when you add some of those X-factor moments on top, then you've got a world-class player.
Yeah, and he's a leader as well. Like he probably not always the loudest, not like a Farrell, but he's always there, leading from the front, doing his job. And when you get a second row like him, who's built like that, who's got the speed and agility like that, then he's just phenomenal.
Great. So come back after the break week. What should England do different in terms of playing against France?
Everything. Like literally everything, because France and Ireland are going to be a hell of a challenge. They are a different class above the other teams at the moment, and physically England can't just tuck up the jumper. They can't just kick it. If they kick it to France and Ireland like they did against Wales, they'll be torn to shreds.
The tempo of France and Ireland is so much quicker than the other teams, especially I think with Ireland. England have really got to prepare for that. And they've got to take the game to them. If they think of sitting back at all, then it'll be game over.
Well, we saw what happened when Scotland started playing some rugby against them. Scotland won, and they won comfortably as well. France are another level up. Ireland are another level up from that as well. So, England have really got to do their analysis on these two teams going for the next couple of weeks and switch it up massively. And they, maybe change of personnel is going to be it's going to be on the cards because
Yeah.
they need to play some more attacking rugby because the kicking game is just not going to work.
Well, there we go. That's England winning 20 points to 10 over Wales, and up next they will be facing or hosting France at Twickenham, and we'll go for a break and we'll be back with Italy versus Ireland. Welcome back once again. So let's move on to the other game. What an electrifying and a cracking game between Italy versus Ireland. James Ryan taking the armband from Johnny Sexton, but he really marshaled this Irish troop really well.
Yeah, he did. It was a great game. It was a brilliant
Really good game.
Really high skill levels as well. You had the crazy attacking from everywhere from Italy, but Ireland's just that. Again, the continuity between forwards and backs, even in open general play, the little moves, the soft touches, some brilliant try scoring as well. Some really, really good high scoring game.
Really good. And again, Ireland played with that tempo. Italy played some really good rugby as well, and it's really good to see them continuing to play and continuing to develop. It was a really good game to watch. Agree with your comment about two good games and one not so good game. So it was a really good game to watch, and Italy is just going to grow in confidence with all the good performances they're putting in.
I think with Italy, I think it's great to see them attacking rugby now. I think it's really good to see that they've definitely developed and stepped up over the last sort of year. We talked about the 20 system and how that grassroots programs work well. But I think what they now need to do to be a seriously competitive team is actually understand the game management. And actually controlling when to attack. It's great to watch, but if they want to win and they want to be taken seriously, it's maybe not the right phrase, but if they want to be respected even more and actually really become one of those top teams, which they can be, because rugby's a big sport in their country. There's a lot of money in it, there's a lot of investment in there. They're doing very well in the URC, that's getting better, but they need to understand that international rugby is not just about showboating and scoring tries from everywhere. It's also about managing it and manage the space and manage the positioning on the pitch, because I think they gave Ireland probably 2, maybe 3 tries in that game, when they probably could have just exited and cleared and been a bit more pragmatic in their approach, because they can score tries, but can they defend as well as they can score? Probably not at the moment.
40 minutes at the half time, the score was 41 points if you take both teams 17 points to 24, and that Italy's last try before the halftime, right on the dot of the halftime, came with an interception. We witnessed 3 interception tries this week, which was great to see. And talking about the Italy's, like you mentioned, Tom, they are doing a lot of work inside their 22, which is predictable. But when you do like that, when you put all your energy and effort in that first quarter, how do you go into the last 10 minutes, because not many changes coming in from the bench,
And this is, you've actually made a good point, because Italy's end to the game has actually been pretty good. Their fitness is brilliant. Like, their strength and conditioning team must be pretty happy, because there's not a real drop off, and they're putting a lot of work in, a lot of unnecessary. I think they're working too hard in the game, because trying to attack from your own goal line is hard work. It is hard, especially international rugby. It's fast paced. You're under a lot of pressure. Defence have got all the time in the world, because they can almost sit back a little bit and just soak up tackles to get all that space. So Italy, if they can, like I said before, if they can start understanding and managing where they are on the pitch, and just clear it, get it out of there. You don't want to be attacking from your red zone. You want to be attacking in the green zone, or maybe the amber zone. That's what they call it. They break down the pitch, and at the moment they're just doing way too much work. And when they do mess it up or drop it, Ireland are like, great, we're in the 22 now. Let's just go and score a try. That's what they did on 2 occasions in that first half.
And I think that's where a big difference has come on with Italy, in the fact that for most teams going over to Italy or playing them at home in the past, they knew that they would tire within the last 20 minutes or so, and so even if you were relatively close then, you knew that you'd be able to close the game out in that last 20 minutes. But it's not so easy now with Italy, and if we can see more game management, as Tom said, then they could really be one of the top teams, because there's loads of talent in that team, and loads of rugby ability. It'll be that game management development that will really take them to the next level.
you see a lot more Italians now popping up in the Premiership,
Yeah.
in the URC, and it's definitely coming through now at international level, because they used to be just known for their scrummaging, their set piece, and you get a couple of props. You know, the Castro Giovanni's that used to come over here, but now they've got in the back three some absolute stars coming through. Their centre partnerships still very, very good. The 10 is playing Harlequin, so they've got a lot of strength
And
now. Playing all over the world, but in the top leagues and teams, they're not just in squads, they're actually starting. They're starting for these Premiership teams, they're starting for these URC teams. So it's exciting times. I mean, they're not going to win the World Cup, but they're definitely going to push teams hard and make teams work for every single point they get.
Yeah.
Absolutely, indeed. And also, Gabisi is back. We witnessed him for like 6 minutes. It was always nice to see a left footer who starts at 10. I haven't seen many after Dan Carter in terms of holding that position, but he also played a decent game in terms of controlling. So it was looked all good for the first 60 minutes.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be a proper world-class fly half. And in fairness to Thomas O'Allen, he's played really well when he's been there. Gabisi has got the potential of helping to take Italy on, and I think he could potentially have some of that game management that possibly the other 10s haven't got. So it'll be really interesting to see now as he comes back in how Italy do play the game, especially when they're playing against more difficult teams.
Let's have a look at this in terms of analysis perspective, Tom and Mark. Now look at this image. You can see Italy players rushing. They have created the dog leg, and in terms of the second phase, there's numbers out wide for Ireland. As a result, Bandiaki scoring that try.
Yeah, so it's simple. They've literally done 2 phases and obviously sucked in all the Italian defence, and then they've switched it back quickly. Where obviously it's a pre-planned move. They've probably planned it 3 phases ahead, and it's literally 2 phases one way, and then a straight switch back as quick as you can, boomerang play they might call it, and call the defence napping.
And you know, Ireland will have done their work on the Italy defence and how they defend, and they would have noticed that. And as Tom said, this will be a pre-planned move. They will know that they need to set up that Italy defence in those first 2 plays, and then play it back.
And that, I think you've highlighted there. I think Ireland's analysis in the week is probably at the top level.
It is.
It's better than all the other teams at the moment. You can see the way they go into games and the plays they're running, and how on page every player is with the moves. You know they've done analysis so much. I mean, Farrell will be on these guys and getting all the games clipped up. They'll look at the defence and they'll break it down into different parts of the game, and they're on it because the plays they're running are just fantastic, and they're perfectly designed for the opposition they're playing. They'll change it every single week, these moves.
Yeah,
They have done their homework.
Yeah, oh yeah,
really.
definitely.
James Lowe missed opportunity for the first try. He missed that opportunity, and Bandiaki scored that try in a similar fashion. If you can just explain what did Aki did right and what did Lowe did wrong.
It's very difficult to say because we're talking very small margins. I think it's probably Bandiaki's upper body strength that probably kept him just in touch and obviously kept the ball in his hand. He's a massively strong player, and not to say that James Lowe isn't, but Aki is, you know, he's really strong, and that upper body strength is what probably carried him through to score that try.
You can't go high on Aki.
No.
You go high on him, it's like hitting a brick wall. So just that strength, and just give that extra couple of seconds just to sort of give him more time to stay in field and get over for the try.
But it's also always difficult to stop Aki, especially with that 5-meter channel.
Yeah.
But he did play really a good game, just despite the fact he considered that offload and it was intercepted by Italy winger. Overall, he is performing. Once you get the opportunity, he is performing. He was a lion, and just like Ollie Lawrence, for instance.
Yeah, very similar. So, I mean, Aki probably has a bit more experience at international level at the moment, but I think you need those players in your team. You know, England tried, or the international tried to move away from that sort of player and a bit more speed and a bit more a playmaker, but you need that big ball carrier because it just punches holes in that defence. It just punches holes in the defence, creates extra space, sucks people in. You probably need 1-2 players on him every single time to bring him down. and that just creates space. And sometimes even having him as a dummy runner, again, it just holds defenders in. Even if it's just for a split second, it just creates that space out wide. It gives fast guys on the outside that chance.
You know, as a defence, you've got to be honest when you've got a 12 like Lawrence or Aki coming at you, because they can punch holes. And so there's, as Tom said, it just creates that little bit more space out wide. And you know, when you do pick all running players, actually, because it's easier to defend, you actually can create less space. So, you know, Wales were really successful with Jamie Roberts at 12, with Jonathan Davis outside. You almost need that 12 who's going to just pull defenders in, so that then the space is created further out.
And he's not just a battering ram, he's actually got some very good skills. Very good skills. His passing game is brilliant off both sides. He can throw the short ball, he can throw the wide ball, so you actually don't know what you're going to get, but 9 times out of 10 you're going to get a palm to the face and on your ass. So, you know, that's the strength of him.
McHansel was in a brilliant form last Six Nations, including scoring a hat-trick in one of the games. Finally, he was able to score 2 tries, 2 beautiful tries, as beautiful as his moustache.
Yeah. I mean, he burst into the scene. I think he's obviously originally from Australia, isn't he? And there's not much to him. You know, he's not a big guy, but he knows his way to the try line. He's got some skills, and he's one of them guys that you think you've tackled him, and he still keeps going, and his leg drive and his work rate is brilliant. But Ireland, they're just. I mean, every player's like that. Their work rate, their technical ability, their contact skills, they're just all up there at the moment, and they're all playing so well. Let's just hope they've not peaked too soon before the World Cup, because Ireland are known to do that as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, but at the moment, they're at the top of their game. If they can keep that going and get better, I just can't see them losing.
Yeah.
I just can't see them losing. They're on a great run at the moment, and you know, fair play to Farrell. Like he's created a team who have got a lot of confidence, who seem to be really enjoying the environment and playing some very good rugby.
And it seems to be evident that they're really enjoying the rugby that they're playing as well, which you know is always so useful, because you know that's what leads to winning teams.
Yeah, and winning becomes a habit. But so does losing. So I think you've got 2 ends of the scale at the moment with a couple of teams. You've got Ireland and France, who have probably got that mindset of like they will win at all costs, everything they do, they're on it. And then on the other side of it, you've probably got England and Wales, who are really struggling. And it's so clear and evident to see at the moment.
Can't wait till the final week on St. Patrick's Day. But talking about Andrew Potter, the Irish tight end prop, he need to control his emotion. He conceded a yellow card in the previous game, and in this game at the 54th minute, he conceded a penalty. In terms of giving away kind of cardinal error, it's quite a cardinal error. But as a result of that penalty, Italy puts a penalty 3 points. It was 20-24, just 4 points different at the 54th minute.
It's props, you know, they drive me insane. It's just what happens. But no, I think all players at international level, you know, at all levels, you play on the edge all the time. You play on the edge of the law, and you want to push boundaries. But it is something that they're going to highlight, because in the bigger games, the closer games, you don't want to be giving away penalties, and you don't want to be giving away easy points, because Ireland will come under pressure at some point. You know, even if they're looking ahead to the World Cup, and these are the fine margins at international level in the semi-finals, the finals, where you want everyone to keep their discipline and not give away these points. So if there is areas to work on, this is probably it for Ireland. Their discipline in the tight area, in the tight parts of the game. But I don't think they're going to be losing too much sleep over at the moment. But it is something they will have to highlight, especially going forward.
And talking a little bit about the analysis that they do, as well as looking at the opposition, they'll be looking at themselves as well. And this will be something that will definitely be highlighted, and they'll be, working on this without a doubt.
And so will other teams. They'll be like, okay, we can get under his skin and we can wind him up and we can get cheap points. And teams do look at that, how to wind up the opposition, whose head can you get into, especially when you're playing against a team like Ireland, who are so strong. Any kind of chink in the armour will be used against them.
Also, Irish proper Beelum is out injured, and there's so many injuries. Sexton, of course, Ringrose. It's a real time for Andy Farrell to test his squad depth, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, and that's what it's all about. Seeing what you've got underneath your starting 15, who can come in, who can just slot in and not make too much of a difference, or you know, or maybe improve the team. So yeah, look, it's rugby, right? There's always injuries, but it's about having that strength in depth and building that squad that can go forward and actually win you these championships. I mean, their target now is they want the Grand Slam, and they're only going to do that if they've got the strength in depth in multiple. You know, they need to have multiple players in every position. So if one player goes down, someone just steps in and nothing changes.
I hope he will remain fit. In case if Farrell is injured, will both will opt for Smith as starting or Ford as starting?
I think we'll go forward.
Yeah.
I think he'll bring in Ford, who's a steady head, who's obviously got that experience, brings that kicking element that we know they're not going to move away from at the moment. I think they can see Ford. He's just come back from injury, and they'll want to get him in as soon as possible. Has he played a game yet? I don't think he's played.
I don't think
he's played a league game. I think he has been brought into training with England. He has had a few training sessions, and they wouldn't have done that if they didn't think they were going to play him. So I can see him getting either a start on the bench or a start if Farrell's not fit.
Wonderful. In terms of Ireland, Italy, Ireland's next game, what do you think?
I can't see anybody beating Ireland.
Grand Slam?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the way they're playing, and obviously we spoke about them, and we've said, you know, the continuity, the way they're playing, forwards and backs linking well with each other, they're strong in every position. Their skill levels are high, their breakdown work is exceptional. Other than a couple of yellow cards, I think they're pretty faultless. They're the team to beat.
And they've got England and Scotland to go. I don't think England will have the confidence to beat them. Scotland will give them a good go, but I can't see them being strong enough to beat Ireland.
Not at the moment.
No.
I think Ireland, Grand Slam for Ireland, definitely.
Wonderful. So there's still 2 weeks to go. That's quite a lot in terms of 2 weeks. We have a week break, so that's the Six Nations show on BCU Sport TV and brought to you by the Coconut Tree. And we'll see you after a week's break with the 4th week action. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Tom.
Cheers. Thank you
Thanks
very much.
for you.